A year after Hamas's attack on Israel on October 7th, a new film has been released that explores the historical context of anti-Semitism and anti-Israel forces. Joining us now is French-Israeli filmmaker Pier Rhov to discuss the topics covered in his new documentary, Pogroms. And you mentioned Arafat and some of the historical context. What's unique about your film is that you go back in time and you uncover the roots of some of this anti-Semitism and the old links to eradicate Jews in Israel. Your film references the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem and his ties to Adolf Hitler, as well as Yasser Arafat and Abbas receiving clandestine training by the Soviet Union's KGB. So can you elaborate on these elements of anti-Israel sort of rhetoric and activation?
Well, Hajj Amini al-Husseini, who was the great Mufti of Jerusalem during the mandatory Palestine, which means the 20s and the 30s of the last century, was a full-time anti-Semite. And he was the first Palestinian leader in the days where they didn't call themselves Palestinians. They were just Arab Muslims living in this region. And the Zionists were arriving, and the British took the region away from the Ottoman Empire. There were local fights. Some were friends, some were enemies, whatever. But this man was a full-time anti-Semite. He hated Jews. He wanted to kill them all, and actually made a deal with Hitler in which, if Hitler had won the war or had taken Palestine, he made a deal in which he would have built a giant Auschwitz close to Haifa. It was part of what he wanted to do. So this man was also a friend of the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood is the problem of today. And we'll talk about it later if you want. But the Muslim Brotherhood is a real problem of today because Qatar is the front money and the capital of the Muslim Brotherhood, and they spend about $1,000 billion every year to corrupt the universities, to corrupt the politicians, to corrupt the media, and their only aim is, number one, destruction of the state of Israel. You have to know that the leaders of the Hamas were living in beautiful life, five-star hotels in Qatar. Among them Ismail Haniyeh, who was killed lately by Israel. So Qatar is a big part of the problem of today. But so I would say the Hamas is in direct connection with the Nazi movement of the 20s and the 30s of last century. But there is another problem, which is that when Israel came to life in 1948, Russia, USSR was one of the first countries to accept to recognize the very existence of the state of Israel, because Stalin believed that Israel would become another communist country. Because, you know, the Jews had this very ideal, we had the kibbutz, which are collective farms and villages and stuff like that. So the Jews were for him a next target to develop the Soviet empire. But soon enough, obviously, Israelis chose the Western camp. They had Western education, they craved for freedom and equality and democracy. So the Russians didn't like that at all. So in the 60s, they started, not only the 60s, way before that, but especially in the 60s, they started the whole campaign against Israel and against the Jews. And today we see the result, because all of this stupid propaganda, terrible propaganda against Israel is originated by the KGB.